Should they regret signing AB?
Hell no. This is a perfect Jon Gruden move. And one thing is, if they suck, it's going to take all the attention away from Jon Gruden not being able to coach. But here's the thing. They don't regret it because they knew what they were getting. If they didn't know what they were getting, they have the wrong people making personnel decisions. Now, this situation is unique, obviously, Molly and Stephen A. But this is who he is. These are the things, like, believe what people tell you. Believe what they show you. When they show you who you are, believe them. Old saying. But this is who Antonio Brown was before he showed up to the Raiders. This is who Antonio Brown is going to be for the duration of his time with the Raiders. And they have to figure out how to adjust around Antonio Brown or rid themselves of Antonio Brown and let him move on. But it won't be this year because they got $30 million tied up in him.
You know what, Marcus? I disagree with you. I think that they should have some regrets. But I'm going to do something that I have never done on national television. I'm going to concede that, you know what? You almost made me want to change my argument. Molly, don't faint. I can't. I mean, Marcus almost made me want to change my argument. Because let me tell you something. Marcus. When you made the statement that Antonio Brown acting this way is going to take pressure off of Jon Gruden because Antonio Brown would get blamed, I went like this. Damn. That is a good one right there. He got me there. I said he got me there. I said, you know, that's a damn good point. It really is. Because if you're Jon Gruden, that definitely would take some of the shrapnel or criticism away from you. But I'm still going to go with regret, and here's why, Marcus. Obviously, Antonio Brown is all-world. This ain't about his skill set. This is about what our expectations are of the Raiders this year, which isn't great because they're in the same division as Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Denver Broncos. We expect them to be in last place yet again. But also it's about you being the face of the franchise as you transition to Las Vegas. And the thing about Antonio Brown that everybody, I think, has been making the mistake of, when you say, Marcus, this is Antonio Brown, this is what you're going to get, that's actually not true. Yes, he might gripe and all of this other stuff. That brother religiously showed up to work.
Yeah.
And remember, even though he's been a diva and all of that stuff, the one thing we've never had to concern ourselves with until the very last game of last season in Pittsburgh was Antonio Brown showing up to work. Now you get $30 million in additional guaranteed dollars, okay, after the guaranteed portion of your contract really expired with Pittsburgh, which is why you wanted to force your way out. You get to Oakland. You got the foot issue. I understand that's a mistake that could have happened. But you are literally being so belligerent and so cantankerous and petulant with your nonsense. You're talking about not playing because of a helmet that Tom Brady has made adjustments to, that Aaron Rodgers has made adjustments to, and a bevy of other players in the National Football League exceeding 2,000. Now, I think he's full of it. Please don't get me wrong. Antonio Brown didn't go through all of this to get $30 million, and then he's going to walk away from it because of his helmet. He is lying to the American public and the football fans everywhere. But the nuisance that he's willing to be, I do think a legitimate argument can be made that it has escalated. Now, granted, we take Mike Tomlin's quotes into consideration. We want volunteers, not hostages, and all of this other stuff. We get all of that. But for the vast majority of Antonio Brown's career, no matter what complaints you had about him, there was never, ever, ever a question mark as to his willingness to show up to work until the last game of last season and now. That is the difference that did not exist throughout his career.
The reason why I say that, Stephen A., is because I believe Antonio Brown, over however long this span has been, his mentality has changed. I think it's obvious to note. Like we said earlier, we talk about his work ethic, how much he's been, how productive he's been on the football field. But when I start to look at all of these little ancillary things, the NFL is this, and they treat us like this, and I don't have to work if I don't want to. I've made enough money. I'm doing me. Obviously being on the shop with LeBron James, hearing him talk about the Ben situation and everything that transpired in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure if we're dealing with the same hustle, AB, from the mentality of I got to get paid, I got to make a lot of money, I come from nowhere, I got to do my thing. I think we're dealing with a different cat now. We're dealing with a superstar that's paid, that has outwardly stated, I don't need to be in the NFL.
Well, then if that's the case, that would buffer the point that I originally
Yeah.
made, that there should be some regret.
Yeah.
Because if you've got that kind of mentality, then you're not the same player. Meaning, I'm not talking about your talent. I'm talking about your commitment. Your commitment to excellence, your commitment to, at the very least, Molly and Marcus, we could always trust that Antonio Brown's commitment was to being recognized as the very best at what he did and validating it every week. We no longer know that about him because he's given us indications that that is no longer the priority. His petulance is, his money is, his attitude is. And Drew Rosenhaus is one, I'm not knocking him at all. He's a sensational agent. He's one of the very, very best there is at doing what he does. But we also see him coming. We know that when Drew Rosenhaus is there, we can predict what position he's going to take, no matter how asinine it appears at times, because he is going to defend his client.
Absolutely.
And that's his
No
job.
question.
We understand that.
And here's the one other thing I just want to mention quickly, if we're saying the Raiders should regret it. From this aspect of trying to figure out, is Derek Carr their quarterback, their franchise quarterback of the future? I don't think they regret this move because having Antonio Brown on the team will let us see that, just like with Dak and Amari Cooper.
And he
so
still
from
go
that
ball.
standpoint, I don't think it's a mistake because they got to figure out the quarterback situation as well.
Can I ask y'all both a question? Can I ask y'all both a question real quick before we end this segment? If Antonio Brown, first of all, if he misses any games, which I don't think will happen,
Right.
Yeah.
that's going to be a problem for Derek Carr. But secondly, when he comes back, he's not going to be sensitive to the fact that there's an absence of chemistry because you weren't there to work with Derek Carr as much as you should have. He's going to still want his. And Derek Carr is going to be compelled to make a decision, which puts him in a precarious situation, too. Has anybody thought about that?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.